Oh, no, now. All right, I think I'm back. I'm sorry. I think that we got disconnected there. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, my internet just quit working. So I am back and trying to kind of get caught back up. We were talking about the tariffs. I'm not gonna start over by any means. Gonna bore anyone through that twice. Instead, what we're gonna do is talk about what might help. One of the things that we were talking about is all the red that we're seeing in the market is not a pretty sight. Like we're talking 7.5% drops this week. We're talking 20% in the Nasdaq, 15% for the S&P 500 over the last 3 months. Not a good start to the year. Not a good position to be in. Not the strongest of starts. So what might help? Well, the first thing we talked about a little bit was lowering rates. If the Fed comes out, I'm gonna pull the chart back up. I was doing that when I lost you before. I forgot that was what I was in the middle of. So, one of the big things that we could see that might bring this red back to green would be the starting of the Fed lowering rates. Probably run into is if we are in an inflationary period still, then the rate cuts could hurt that. They're gonna take 6 to 12 months for the money that the Fed, that lowering rates puts into the system for that to really take effect. So it's not going to be a quick turnaround if that happens. Doesn't mean that we can't see the market go back up on Monday. There's always that potential. Maybe we're not in as bad a shape, and maybe this is just a panic due to the news. I think the likelihood is high that that's the case. It's just a panic due to the news. But if it lasts longer and the tariffs do cause some harm, we talked about in the earlier video that we lost, then lowering rates could be a big factor in overcoming that. A second thing we were getting into is taxes. We can see some tax cuts. If we see some tax cuts, that's gonna stir on and kind of offset maybe the tax revenue that's going to be collected from the tariffs. And I think that's really what we need to do is if we continue to keep these tariffs in place and then we see tax cuts, that puts more money in you and my hand. Even if inflation comes into play, the tax cuts maybe offset the inflation a little bit and help us out in that area. Don't know if that's going to happen or not, but hopefully it will. The biggest concern I have is if these tariffs stay in place. In 2017 there was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the TCJA, and that was often referred to as the Trump tax cuts. Well, they were the largest tax cut on the middle class in U.S. history. So you and I, they were the biggest tax cut we've ever had, and they expire this year. So they're about to run up. As I was getting ready to record this video, I heard that the Senate is ready to spend an all-nighter tonight trying to work through the reconciliation process or something that they're going to do to try and get this tax cut permanent. But not only would it be good to see that tax cut permanent, if we're going to keep these tariffs in place, we also need to see the tax cut maybe even expanded. And the Trump administration and those around him have been talking about that. Really, I could come up with 4 things that I've heard that have been pretty big, that could be pretty big tax cuts to help you and I. One of them is making Social Security tax free. So if Social Security becomes tax free, yes, it's going to benefit a few rich people who would normally be paying tax on their Social Security because they have other income. But really what it's going to do is it's going to help every taxpayer that has Social Security make sure that that Social Security is theirs. And that's going to help moms and dads. That's going to help grandmas and grandpas. It's gonna help all the Social Security receivers. So that would be a really good expansion of the tax cuts. Another one that Trump has been talking about since before the inauguration, back into the election period, was making tips free, tip wages free. That one was so popular, even Kamala jumped on the board and said she would do the same thing. So free tips. I don't know to what degree that would help, but I know that there are some people that do pretty well on tips. It would help them. The normal person on tips, when I think of tips, I think of the waitress that works at Bob Evans or at Applebee's. They might not be making enough to where it matters that much, but if you're making $40,000-$50,000 a year and and all you get is tips, that's going to be a big tax break. Put a lot in your pocket. Another one that I've heard, and this one I think was the most interesting, and quite honestly, if this took effect, this could be earth-shattering in terms of how much money it could put into the hands of the normal everyday person, was making all tax under 150,000. Any family that makes 150,000 or less, tax free. So we're basically talking the vast majority of all taxpayers paying nothing in tax if that happens. Uh, I should probably look it up and see how many taxpayers are under 150,000, tax households are under 150,000. It's the vast majority. The average person, the average household doesn't make 100,000 a year. So it's a vast majority. So if 150,000 and under all becomes tax free, well, that money's going to go somewhere. It's not going to go, it's not going to just go sit in the coffers of the Fed. It's going to go into the stock market. People are going to go out to eat more. People are going to buy cars. People are going to buy new TVs, all those things. And it would really do a good job of offsetting the tariffs. So if we're able to see that tax cut come into place, then, all this red might turn green, because it would be a really positive and a really effective new push towards lowering taxes. And then the last thing I've seen is just really a simplification. I heard this one today, was the idea that all the three lowest tax brackets, which are 10%, 12%, and 22%, get merged into one, and that's somewhere around a 12% bracket. Like, that could possibly help. It's going to help some people for sure. It's not going to help the lowest end. It's going to help the people that are on the higher end of that tax bracket. But that's still people making 70, 80, 90,000 a year that are going to really see that could potentially start to see some help on that once you get just over those marks. Another thing that could really help and see the economy turn around is a decrease in regulations. So there's a lot of regulations that are slowing down business. The way I look a lot of times at the U.S. economy is we are a speedboat with an anchor down, because taxes are slowing us down and our regulations are slowing us down. So if we can limit some of these regulations that make it hard on businesses to start or hire or expand, then cutting some of these regulations could really be beneficial to seeing the market grow and the market start to come back. So that would be something that could be very valuable, and seeing some of those. In fact, you know, it could really add to businesses deciding to hire and expand. But one example specifically is in housing. It could really help out in housing. The primary cause, we have about 9 million houses short. And one of the primary causes for those 9 million houses not being built are regulations and zoning. And zoning is just a form of regulations. So if you're familiar with Vice is a website, a YouTube channel that it's a left-leaning liberal website, and they did an editorial on houses and why housing prices have gotten so expensive and why we're having this housing crisis now in America. And one of the things they talked about a lot was the fact that communities they don't want multifamily homes. So the regulations are preventing multifamily homes from being built, zoning, and that drives up the price of every single house. The second thing they talked a lot about was land usage rules. They specifically looked at California, and they looked at when home builders would buy a plot of land and they would put forward the request to build, say, 500 houses, for example. Then they would buy the land, they would close on the land, they put the plans forward, they'd have pre-approval already, and then pre-approval would be thrown away. And those 500 houses, they say, well, based on the size of the land, we'll only let you build 250. And then they'll go back and they'll go down to 100, and then they'll go back again, and maybe it's down to like 50. So some of these regulations are preventing builders from building the number of houses that they want to build. So eliminating regulations, or I don't say eliminate because we need some, obviously, but decreasing regulations that we don't need could be very helpful. And it's not just housing and zoning. EPA rules need to be trimmed back. We need to find some areas in those. In my industry, the regulations in my industry are absolutely crazy. Probably the single largest reason that it costs as much to work with a financial advisor as it does are the regulations. It is very expensive to have compliance costs involved. So the more regulations we have, the less likely we are to see this red turn green. But if Trump were to come out tomorrow and say we're cutting regulations, To steal a word from the election a few years back, drill baby drill, right? If he were to come out and say drill baby drill, and he were to say we're opening up all these new wells, or we're going to build some new nuclear plants, energy is probably the biggest area. You would see this turn green. It would turn green really fast. And then obviously the one he talks about the most is the whole concept of onshoring. One of a big thing that could really turn us around is if we start to see more companies being willing to say they're going to make their goods in America. They're going to come back and build here. The companies that have sent stuff overseas, even if we see foreign companies come in and build here. And the great thing is, so far this year, we've seen this happen. We've seen Apple come in with $500 billion of expansion that they've committed to doing. We've seen Eli Lilly saying that they're going to double their U.S. manufacturing investments. So whatever they were spending, they're going to double it. Toyota and Corning have both also said that they're going to onshore some of their manufacturing. So we're seeing it. And if this trend continues, this is probably, I would say, the slowest option we have, because this trend continues. It's going to take time for those plants to open up. It's going to take time for them to get going and to be up and running and hiring. But while they're being built, they're going to hire construction workers, so that's still going to help. As soon as they can start breaking ground again, right? Regulations. But as soon as they can start breaking ground, we'll start to see some positive economic growth, and even just the news that these things are going to happen will turn the markets green again, and help us out. And then the last thing I see that would really help us get out of this slump is reciprocity. If Trump is truthful, and I know that the moment I say that, I get two responses. Half of the audience, half of you out there are going to laugh and think, of course he's not. And the other half of you are going to be mad that I said, if he's truthful. But if Trump is truthful, and if the purpose of these tariffs is to get other countries to remove their tariffs against us, then when they do that, if they do that, then the reciprocity will help, and we'll kind of get back to normal. But instead of normal, we'll get back to normal where we're at an even race with them, as opposed to them being ahead and starting on the 20-yard line in a 100-meter race. 20-yard line in a 100-yard race. I should use the same measurement, right? So that could be good. So I know a lot of conservative people on the news and on the radio are saying this is the art of the deal. He's using it to as one of my friends said the other day, he's bullying them. I don't know that I would say bullying. I'm tired of that term. It's overused. He's just saying he's saying we're gonna do to you what you do to us. And if this is just the art of the deal, and it is just a negotiation tactic, and it works, then we could be in really good shape. And we may see that it works. I saw a list of 12 countries that either have already lowered their tariffs on us, a couple have eliminated them completely, or have made some form of statement saying that they're open to negotiating and talking and lowering their tariffs on us. Those countries that I saw were Israel, who took it to zero. They are no longer having any tariffs on us. Vietnam, Cambodia, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand. Now you think, okay, how big are some of these? Well, South Korea is a big one. Taiwan and Thailand are big for chip manufacturing, so we need those. Canada has even said they want to make sure that we're working together properly. India, there's a lot of people in India, a lot of stuff we could be selling there if there were not if the pricing were fair. The United Kingdom has said they are open to negotiating. Australia, Mexico, Argentina has said they're going to zero and are going to be no longer tariffing us. And what's interesting about this one is we'll kind of circle back in a way to the video that got cut off, and we'll talk a little, mention politics again. In 1996, Nancy Pelosi, 2018, Barack Obama, and 2018, Schumer all spoke out about how we need to have, these are specific times. Nancy Pelosi was on the floor of Congress saying that we need to have reciprocity between us and China. Obama said that he tariffed them because they were sending too many tires to us. Schumer said we need to be, we need to do something to make things even between us. So there's a lot of people in the past that have liked this policy against it today, probably because of who's doing it. There's a lot of people watching who are against it because of who's doing it. I don't like tariffs. I don't like that Trump's doing tariffs. But if the things that we talked about, these things happen again, like we said, if we start to see lowering of taxes, if we start to see a cutting of regulations, if we start to see onshoring and returning of manufacturing work, and we see the reciprocity of other countries lowering their tariffs on us, this could put us in a really good place. And quite frankly, I think this last one is one of the best ones we could see. Now, any of these options are going to take some time. They're not going to be immediate. Um, they're going to take time to build factories. They're going to take time for money to get into the system. Tax cuts won't happen until take effect until next year. Regulations will still need to, and maybe actually be maybe one of the faster ones, because if they can just say this regulation's gone and get moving on stuff, but it'll still take time for people to decide, hey, we're going to get back into this area of the economy. And even rate cuts are going to take at least 6 months for any rate cuts to funnel through. So it's going to take some time. But if these changes take place, and the tariffs can go away because we've seen reciprocity, and we can see lower tax rates for a longer period of time, and we can see less government regulation inside of business, then we can really be on the edge of a new growth in America. The problem is the next 6 months, 12 months even, who knows what's going to happen. And that's what we're seeing here, is just this concern of I don't know what's going to happen, and that worries people. So Congress is supposedly, the Senate is supposedly pulling an all-nighter tonight to work on this tax bill. If they come out tomorrow morning and they say we have a tax bill in place, and they pass it, and the House approves the reconciliation that comes through, that could be probably the best thing that we see in the next few days. That would really help. That would really help. That being said, I do want to give you some tangible advice, not just, well, if this happens, that'll happen. America's a great place to invest. So don't jump out of the market. Don't get scared. Don't panic. These things happen. In fact, we see a 20% drop in the market roughly every 3 to 5 years. We see on any given year, the average downturn is 14% in the middle of the year. So we're just at this point, all we've seen right now is an average market drop that we see just about every year. So don't panic. Don't get scared out of it. Don't think it's going to continue to go down, because it might not. Don't think it's going to bounce back tomorrow, because it might not. I think the best piece of investing advice that I could give you is it's borderline impossible for me to tell you what the market's going to do tomorrow. I have no clue what it's going to do next year. 5 years from now, I have a pretty solid idea. 10 years, I can pretty much predict. I can tell you what's going to happen over the next 10 years, but tomorrow, who knows? So stay in, keep remembering for the long haul. If you're at the point where you're retiring and the money is coming out and you're kind of like, I don't have that much time, recognize that you probably do have more time than you need. And that's where diversification comes in. If you're at the retiring phase and you don't have 10 more years and the money's coming out and you're in your mid 70s and you don't know if you'll be alive in 10 years, then that's why you have probably half, if not more, of your investments in bonds. And the bond market has done pretty good the last couple of days. So diversification will really help you. If you're young and you've got anywhere more than 5 years to 10 years till retirement, man, this is what you want to do. You want to go out and make some extra money, and you want to put it in the stock market. You want to take any money that you've maybe been putting in bonds the last few years, if you have any, and maybe put it in the stock market. If you got CDs, if you got cash, put it in the stock market. Now, it might go down. It might go down another 10% from where we're at now. I don't know. It might go down another 20 from where we're at. But 10 years from now, wouldn't it be great? Like, think about this. 10 years from now, wouldn't it be great to be able to say I bought the S&P when it was at 50.74 instead of saying I bought it when it was at 6,000? So trust in the economy. Trust in the trust. Don't trust in the government. It sounds like I was about to say that, but I wasn't always going to trust in the history of the U.S. economy, because it's you and me. Like, it's not the people in Washington. It's you and me. We're the economy, not them. Don't trust them. Trust you. Trust me. Trust your neighbors. We're going to bounce back. Just give it time. Don't be panicked. The worst thing you could do. Remember, the number one rule in investing is what? Buy low. We're low today. Sell high. Don't sell out right now. Don't do it. Do not do it. Like I know, like, right, this is where we have to give that disclosure. Don't take my advice. Consult your professional for personalized advice. And that's true. But if there's anything you can do to stay invested, stay, because this is the best time to own. So I hope you have a good weekend. I know mine's gonna be nervous because I do this for a living. Let me be nervous for you. Don't be nervous. Have a good weekend.